Shana Tova, Boker Tov, everyone. Wish you all a Gemara Chatima Tova, good inscription in the Book of Life. We're so happy you're here this morning to share in our Yom Kippur services. And welcome back to those of you that are here either at Rosh Hashanah or last night for Kol Nidre. Joining me on the bima is Cantor Patti Linsky. Thank you for once again sharing this holy days with us. Our assistant Rabbi Max Chaiken, we're happy that he's here, and we'll hear more from him in a little bit. And particularly happy and pleased to have Dr. Lorry Black be our music director once again, and beautiful job, Aileen. We're glad to have you back, Mishkar, and our beautiful new harpist. We're so happy you're here with us this morning. So we begin, as our custom, we'll call you forward in different groups. There's some spaces in the front row, so you can be closer to the bima as we, so you don't lose a lot of time, and as you're participating in the service. At 10:30, I'm just going to warn you now, I will be leading the family services in room 105, so we'll give you a signal for those of you that would like to join us in room 105. So we begin together on this holy day of Yom Kippur as we welcome each other with on page 138, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob, your tabernacles, O Israel.
Israel.
work, sometimes slower than we'd like them to, but to acknowledge all of ourselves, and to also to thank God for the very breath within us. Page 158, the soul and the breath are related in Jewish tradition. Elohai neshama shnatata bi Torahi. God, the soul you have given me is pure. You formed it, you shaped it, and you breathed it into me. They realized that some days miracles aren't the big things, like the splitting of the Red Sea, or the prophet Elijah being able to make the sun stand still, but rather simply getting out of bed in the morning, being able to open our eyes, to get dressed, to greet the day. That too is a daily, everyday miracle. So as we sing together about the everyday miracles, think for yourself the things that you have to be grateful for, the blessings in your life, and the miracles of every day, that we all may rise. The words are above us. It's the name of the piece.
Who breaks the chains of slavery and shows me the way? Who springs through my footsteps? Who opens up my eyes? Who lifts up the fallen that we all may rise? That we all may rise. That we all may rise. That we all
Page 170 is the page where we find Psalm 150. It is the very last psalm in the book of Psalms. But this is the psalm sung by the Levites, celebrating all of the music of the ancient temple. This version is written by our very own assistant rabbi, Kol Ami. The words for his version are up there, but you can also find them on page 170.
Kol Hashama Tehalel Yah. Kol Hashama Tehalel Yah. Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Kol Hashama Tehalel Yah. Kol Hashama Tehalel Yah. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, with all that breathes, use their breath to praise God. With all that breathes, praise Adonai. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, Kol Hashama Tehalel Yah. Kol Hashama Tehalel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, with all that breathe, use their breath to praise God. Let all that breathe, praise Adonai. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
We continue together on page 174. Levi Yeshurim Titromam, Udivrei Tzadikim Tiparach, Uvilshon Chasidim Tikadash, Uvikero Kilushim Tikhalal. Together by the mouths of the upright you are raised up, in the words of the righteous you are blessed, on the tongues of the pious you are sanctified, in the midst of the holy you are praised. Your people by the thousands sing to glorify your name. In all generations we give voice to your sovereignty. We continue in the next page. Our sovereign God, source of holiness and greatness, may your name be praised forever in this world and beyond. Eternal One, God of our mothers and fathers, your strength, sanctity, glory, and dominion are deserving of song, praise, poetry, hymn, sacred chant, and blessings of thankfulness for all time and eternity. Baruch atah Adonai, El Melech Gadol Batishbachot, El Ha'ogaot, Adon Haniflaot, Habocher B'shirei Zimra, Melech Elchei Ha'olamim. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign of praise, source of the impulse to give thanks, crown of wonders who desires a world filled with song and a universe of light. We call up Steve Addison now to open our ark. If Steve, you're here. And we turn to page 178 in our Machzor, and as the ark is open, if you will please rise. Please be seated. We turn together to page 181. Would you join me in the top of the page? Those who dwell as scientists or laymen among the beauties and mysteries of the earth are never alone or weary of life. Whatever the vexations or concerns of their personal lives, their thoughts can find paths that lead to inner contentment and to renewed excitement in living. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. There is symbolic as well as actual beauty in the migration of birds, the ebb and flow of tides, the folded bud ready for the spring. There is something infinitely healing in the repeated refrains of nature, the assurance that dawn comes after night, and that spring after the winter. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMerorot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the lights of heaven. We join together on page 182. Love abundant, love unstinting, our God, you have enfolded us in love. Tender compassion beyond all bounds, your precious gift. Our fathers and mothers gave you their trust, and you gave them Torah, laws by which to live. For their sake, teach us as well. Grace us with your guidance. Loving Father, merciful Mother of us all, grant us clear understanding that we may listen, learn, and teach, preserve, practice, and fulfill with love every lesson of your Torah. May learning your Torah light up our eyes, and may our hearts embrace your mitzvot. We conclude at the bottom of 184. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'amo Yisrael ba'ahava. You have singled out your people Israel with love. We take a moment to prepare for the Shema, words that we know almost instinctually as Jews. Words that are to be inscribed on the doorposts of our house, inside the mezuzah. Words that are inside the tefillin that we wear on our head during the weekdays, and on our hearts, on our arms, close to our hearts. Words that the Jew is supposed to say in morning and evening before we go to sleep. Words that we are supposed to say as we give our last breath in this life. The Shema tells us to listen, to hearken, to pay attention. And what better day to pay attention than on this day, Yom Kippur, which is a day for paying attention. Paying attention to the world around you. Paying attention to yourself, how you've acted, how you've behaved. Paying attention to the year ahead. Being receptive and being open. The Shema connects us through the generations, connects you to your ancestors and to your descendants, the ones you won't even know about yet. The Shema, our people's mission statement in some ways to affirm the oneness of God and our connection to that God. So as we stand together on this holy day of Yom Kippur, we rise in and affirm our traditions, our past, our present, and our future, and our connection to the one, the creator of all. Page 186. Together with this contemporary version of the Haftarah, the words are on the screen.
Love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise. Bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be a symbol between your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your house, and upon your gates, and upon your gates. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise, and when you rise, and when you rise.
Page 193. We pray responsibly. Admit the Yatziv, true and enduring, all else is fluid, impermanent, and fleeting. Unsteady, we falter, in chaos we cry, in quest for some certainty and anger. Tzor Chayenu, Magen Yishenu, rock of our lives, our shield and protector, you are the constant abiding through time. The rock whose words speak of wholeness and justice. You, the still center, fixed point where we stand. From the ends of the earth, from the depths of despair, we call with the psalmist to our fortress and refuge. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Our rock and our salvation, our shelter and strength. Grounded in you, we shall never be shaken. The towers of city will crumble with age, and iron corrodes and decays into rust. But the words and teachings that echo from Sinai are true and enduring forever they stand. Page 196. We sing the song of freedom and celebration, as did Moses and Miriam and all Israel. Page 196, Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha, Mi Chamocha, Shiva Hadash those of you who would join us for the family service to join me in room 105. And those who will be participating in this next section to come and sit in the front row, Margie Haber, Michael Haber, Avi Dentarine, Kathy Weiss, Robin Waxner, Carol Newman, and David Belenky. You'll join her in the front row. Those of you that would like to join the family service now, it's a good time to take your seat.
Page 198, continue responsively in English. In the depths of night, by the edge of the river, Jacob was left alone. In heartfelt longing in the temple of God, Hannah uttered her prayer alone. In the barren wilderness, in doubt and despair, Elijah found God alone. On the holiest day, in the Holy of Holies, the high priest entered alone. We are bound to one another in myriad ways, but each soul needs time to itself. In solitude, we meet the solitary one. Silence makes space for the still small voice. For the psalmist says, deep calls unto deep. From the depths of our soul we seek what is most profound. We continue and we rise together as we begin our Lord's Thanksgiving.
Amen.
אתה, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומציל אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך אמת ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, מי כמוך אל הרחמים, זוכר יצורם לחיים ברחמים.
ולאמונתו לחיות הכל, ברוך
אתה אדוני מחיי העם. Please be seated. Page 213. An empty page, an open book, a day of ultimate questions. Will I still be here next year at this time with the ones I love beside me? What's in store for my family? What will become of my friends? Who will have reason to celebrate? Who will contend with grief? New love, new babies, marriages deepening or breaking apart, prosperity, struggle, reversals of fortune, illness, and health await us. Who will be missing when we gather next? Join me. Who will stand apart? Who will be estranged? And who will have joined us, enriching our community? On the edge of the unknown we tremble. What lies ahead for us all? An empty page, an open book. Nothing is written and nothing is sealed. Flesh and blood, frail creatures, our lives are fleeting and subject to chance. Yet this we possess, the strength to persist, to prevail, to comfort one another in the dark. Prayer, right action, a turning toward the good. These give us hope and help us bear the pain of life. This meditation prepares us to return back to page 208 for some of the more somber words of our Yom Kippur liturgy, words of Cantor Patti, which Cantor Patti Linsky will chant for us on page 208. English. And so a great shofar will cry, Tekiah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, Behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgments. On page 12, continue Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, Mikatenu, Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur, Yedatenu. Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on the fast of Yom Kippur it is sealed. How many will pass away from this world, and how many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine? Who by drought? Who by earthquake? Who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil? Who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humble and who exalted? Top of page 214. Utshuva utfila utzdaka ma'adirin et roa hagzera. But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous living, righteous giving and living, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. About to pray Kedusha. And it's a prayer that focuses on God's holiness. That's why its name sounds a lot like other words that you might know about holiness. Kiddush, or the blessing over the wine, or Kaddish, prayer of praise, sometimes said in memory of a loved one. So you might recognize Kedusha, what we're about to pray, for its notorious choreography. Well, I'll invite some of our congregants to join us at the ark, and we'll raise, when we hear the words Kadosh, 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 we'll raise up on our toes. But I want to stop for a second and ask, what are we really doing when we raise up on our toes? And to answer that, we need to learn a little bit more about the prophet Isaiah. You see, perhaps the most influential of all our Hebrew prophets. We'll actually hear Isaiah's call for justice in our Haftarah reading a little later this morning, which Zoe will share with us. But in Kedusha, we remember his moment of being called. Being called and literally encountering God face to face. Chapter 6 of Isaiah describes this fantastic scene in which the prophet has a glimpse of the eternal sitting on God's throne of glory. And all about God's presence there are seraphim, fiery celestial beings of some sorts, maybe called angels. You might know them as seraphim in more common English. But seraphim comes from the word fire. And it's actually those angels or those creatures that are calling Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. They're calling this word, holiness, to one another. And when Isaiah sees this, all about God, he's actually terrified. Let's be very clear about that. This is something he is not expecting to see. Until one of those fiery seraphim comes and touches his lips with a hot ember. And in that moment, he is purified from his sins. And he's no longer afraid. And only after that is he ready to respond, Hineni, I am here, when God calls to him to be God's prophet. Why am I sharing this with you? I'm sharing this with you because what I find most beautiful in this moment of our prayers that we're about to join together in is that by praying these words, Kadosh, 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 and by remembering the story, we can actually imagine ourselves as both the angels and as Isaiah. When we call out Kadosh, 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 like the angels do, our words are helping one another prepare for atonement, like the angels' words do for Isaiah. And simultaneously, as we listen to one another and to the majestic melody that we'll pray with, we are also like Isaiah, hearing these words for the very first time and readying ourselves for the year to come to say, Hinenu, here we are, when God calls us
justice. This time, it is my honor to invite Margie and Michael Haber, Kathy Weiss, and Avi Deteren to the Bima as we rise together for Kiddushan. Continue. Please be seated. Our holiday liturgy, our Yom Kippur Tefillot, continues now with a few moments where our prayers are drawn to different themes than is customary for a normal morning service. So what I'd like to spend a few moments doing now is taking some spiritual inventory, a sort of meditation. So I invite you, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Feel that life force. Inhale and exhale, connecting you back to one another, to yourself. And for this first theme is the theme of awe, or wonder. And I want you to try and imagine one way how you will discover awe. this year. Maybe you'll find it in a natural setting, hiking at the ocean. Maybe you'll find it in relationship. Don't forget to breathe. Find one thing that you'll have awe for this year. Hold that with you. To be awake is to be alive. Only that day dawns to which we are awake. One cannot help but be in awe when one contemplates the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It's enough if we try merely to comprehend a little of that mystery, that awe every day. Never lose a holy curiosity. Wisdom begins with awe of the eternal. As we continue this spiritual inventory, this accounting of our own soul, we move to the question, how will you pursue holiness this year? Kedusha, we just heard about. How will you pursue holiness? Are there practices that you'd like to take up? Are there others you'd like to leave behind? How will you mark your time, your precious time on this planet, and imbue that with sacredness, with something special? Inhale and exhale, and find one aspect of holiness that you'll take with you this year. And our prayers then call us to think about righteousness and justice. They ask us, how will you raise your voice for justice this year? How will you raise your voice like a shofar, sounding out and speaking truth to the entire world? Inhale and exhale. Find maybe one cause or one place in your life where you know your voice can make a difference. Take that call to justice, take that pursuit of holiness, take that discovery of awe, and bring that with you as we move into this new year. Take another deep breath. And we open our eyes. We continue the words of prayer on page 228. You and you alone, Adonai, will reign over creation. Upon Mount Zion, home of your presence, and in Jerusalem, a city set apart by you. As the psalmist believed, the Eternal shall reign for all time, your God for all generations, Zion. Hallelujah. Together, you are holy, your name is awe. There is nothing divine beyond you. As the prophet Isaiah taught, the source of all might is exalted through justice, the God of holiness made holy through righteousness. Baruch atah Adonai, HaMelech HaKadosh. Blessed are you, Adonai, Holy Sovereign. Page 230. You chose us with love together to be messengers of mitzvot, and through us you made known your aspirations. Among all the many peoples, you gave us a pathway to holiness. Among all the great nations, you uplifted us and made yourself our sovereign. And so we seek you and serve you and celebrate our nearness to your presence. Your great and sacred name has become our calling. In your love, eternal our God, you have given us this Yom Kippur, a day on which our wrongs are forgiven, a day of sacred assembly, a day to be mindful of our peoples going out from Egypt. Page 232, we join together. Our God and God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and go before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, for well-being and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of atonement. Page 233, we offer a particular blessing in which the response will be Amen, specific to this time of year. Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo letovah. Amen. Ufokdenu bo livracha. Amen. Vehoshienu bo lechayim. Amen. Eternal our God, remember us. Amen. Be mindful of us. Amen. And redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing. Amen. Favor us with words of deliverance and mercy. Show us the depth of your care. God, we await your redemption, for you reign with grace and compassion. On page 238, Cantor Linsky will offer us, would say, a prayer asking that all our prayers be heard and desired by our tongue. continue on page 245, and we're moving into the priestly blessing, which are some of the oldest words of blessing in our tradition, and it is our custom here at Kol Ami to invite those who are Kohanim, those who are have priestly lineage, to come down to the front now at this time and help offer this blessing. So if you are a Kohen, if that is part of your family tradition or your lineage, we invite you now to join us down right in front of the Torah table. And I'm on page 245. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev taught the hands of the Kohanim were a language in themselves. Hands held out with the palms facing up indicate the desire to receive. Hands held up with the palms facing down indicate the desire to give. So when the Kohanim lifted up their hands to bless, they did not wish to pray for themselves, but only to bestow God's bounty on the people. Holy One, we strive to be a nation of priests, our lives consecrated to holy work. Help us to use our hands as instruments of divine service, conduits of your goodness. May blessings flow through us to our children, our friends, and all those whose lives we touch. On page 244, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu barchenu b'bracha ha'mshureshet ha'ktuba b'Torah ha'amura mipi kohanim am kedoshecha ka'amor. Our God, divine presence whose path our ancestors walked, bless us now with words first bestowed on Israel in the time of Moses and Aaron, that threefold blessing given us through Torah that joins our hope with theirs. Yivarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha ken yehi ratzon. Join me in saying, ken yehi ratzon, ken yehi ratzon. May God bless you and protect you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka ken yehi ratzon. May God's the light of God's presence shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Ken yehi ratzon. May God's presence lift up to you and grant you wholeness and peace. Ken yehi ratzon. So may this be God's will. Thank you, Kohanim. We continue with a moment of independent prayer. Please pray silently.
Shalom.
like to invite Robin Waxner, Carol Newman, and David Belenke forward to open our ark. We're turning to page 252. One of the highlights of the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, the 10 days of repentance, is the Avinu Malkeinu prayer. God is sovereign. We ask God to hear our prayers, hear our voices, to pray for full teshuvah, full repentance, and particularly to imagine the world as we want it to be. We invite you now to please rise as the ark opens. Avinu Malkeinu Shema Kolenu, together. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu V'Ao Aleinu V'Tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families. Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Dever V'Chera V'Ra'av Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Tzor Mastim Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, V'Chodvenu V'Sefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, renew us for a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, Malei Yadeinu B'Birchotecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, Hareb Karen Mashichecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, Na'al Tashvenu Rekam Elfanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, Kabel Rachamim Uratzon Et Tefilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love and accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Imanu Lama'an Shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu, act towards us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Lamancha Im Lo Me'avnenu. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, Ein Lanu Melech Ela Ata. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, Petach Sharei Shemayim L'Tefilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, Chus V'Rachem Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu V'Alenu, Chi Banu Ma'asim, Aseh Imanu Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, answer us with grace for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Studentiv. Shana Tova. Do you remember how old you were when you first learned anything about God? I'd like you to try to remember. I want you to try to imagine God the way you did when you were a child. Do you remember where you were when you first learned something? Do you remember who it was that first spoke with you about God? Or how it came up? Do you remember what you thought about God? Or how you imagined God at that time? I'm guessing that for many of you, these details may be kind of fuzzy. Yet I'm willing to bet that for some of you, the God of your childhood might have looked something like this. The old man in the sky kind of image. It wasn't quite the same for me. I remember having an early idea about God, maybe when I was 4 or 5, just barely kindergarten. And this is what I imagined when I would hear the term God. Yes, that's right. Instead of the bearded old man in the sky, for me it was a handsome, clean-shaven, green giant who protected and grew vegetables and encouraged you to eat more of them on TV. Don't worry, in another couple years, my image grew a little bit as well. Yes, good, laugh it up. My kindergarten imagination of God as the jolly green giant did give way to my second grade imagining God as Mr. Clean. And I know they say cleanliness is next to godliness, but I don't think that that's what they meant. Luckily, I eventually realized that these images were tricks my imagination was playing with me. Still, in many ways, my imagination failed to grow with me. Sure, I may have left the Jolly Green Giant or Mr. Clean behind, but despite active participation in Jewish life throughout high school and college, I was never actually challenged to explore, imagine, or articulate the kind of God I do believe in until I went to rabbinical school. And I don't think my experience is really all that unique. Many of us adults are not asked to use our imagination about anything, let alone about God. But by sparking our imagination about the divine, we can cultivate understandings that will help us cope with life's challenges and direct us to be holy as we imagine God to be. Finding new ways to imagine the divine should enable us to better understand the type of holiness that we are trying to bring into our lives and into the world we inhabit. So how do we re-engage our imagination in this task of describing the indescribable? Well, Judaism, you see, offers various tools for the task, but this morning I'm going to focus on our tools of language, on words, on stories, and on poetry. From the first act of creation in our Torah, we learn that words themselves have creative power. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. As beings created in God's image, moreover, we can understand ourselves to share at least some fraction of that creative power with our words. We know this to be true when it comes to our words towards one another. How a single word can shoot like a bullet to injure us, or how it can heal like a Band-Aid. The creative power of words also applies when we're talking about God. The names we use for God, the very words we use, each convey different aspects of the divine. By carefully choosing our names, we are literally creating the possibility for us to imagine God in different ways. Luckily, our tradition does have myriad names for God. Holy One of Blessing, Almighty One, Creator, Merciful, God of our ancestors, Breath of Life, Spirit of the universe. Each name offers a different aspect and ignites our imagination in new ways. Let's take the four-letter name for God, Yud, He, Vav, He. We most often use the euphemism Adonai when we speak this name, because we do not actually know how it may have once been pronounced. But Adonai does not convey the meaning of these letters in Hebrew. You see, Adonai literally means my master. It actually refers to that element of sovereignty that we think about at this time of year, also in the term for God, Malkenu, or Melech, ruler, or our king. Yet these four letters, Yud, He, Vav, He, actually constitute a verb. They refer to that which was, Hayah, which is Hoveh, which is yet to be, Yihiyeh. They bring those three words together into a word that basically means being itself. Existence, in other words, is another one of God's very names. Now let's imagine how that understanding might apply and adjust the meaning of one of our deepest prayers. Shema Yisrael, Yud He Vav He Eloheinu, Yud He Vav He Echad. We usually translate, Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. But when we think about that Yud He Vav He as a term for all existence, we might get, Hear, O Israel, our God exists. All being is one. It's a pretty big change to me. Now, instead of imagining a singular entity, like that old man in the sky, or my own childish spin of the Jolly Green Giant, by adjusting just one little word, I can now imagine God's self as a process, as a life force present through all space and time. Jewish thinkers and those of other faiths have come to call this type of theology, this type of thinking about God, process theology, because it insists that God self can be understood as a process rather than some unchanging entity. And what appeals to me most about this type of theology is that I don't need to assume that God is all-powerful or all-knowing. Instead, God can be that life force that pervades all space and time, guiding me to make the best choice I can in whatever circumstance I find myself. And when we move from one word to many, we invite stories and poetry also to help spur our theological imagination. And especially here in Hollywood, we all know not to underestimate the power of a good story. As individuals, we are constantly in the process of telling and retelling our own story. And sometimes we do that consciously. Think about crafting your resume or sharing your favorite meal on social media. Those are forms of storytelling too. But sometimes that process takes place subconsciously, and we seem to recall things differently as time goes on, or the sting of a hurtful moment gives way to the importance of an apology. As a people, as the Jewish people, we do the very same thing with our great story, learning and relearning Torah year after year. Even God, in the Torah, uses stories to help us understand God. My favorite example of this can be seen in the story of Moses at the burning bush. Moses noticed that the bush was burning and not consumed, and when Moses approaches, God reveals God's self to Moses as the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Of all the ways that God could have introduced God's self to Moses, Torah here suggests that God chooses to become part of Moses' own story. The God who appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and established a covenant with them then becomes the same God who promises to be with Moses and give him strength as he speaks truth to Pharaoh's power. And as a tool for provoking our own theological imagination, we can use narrative too. We can share from our own experience of the divine presence and from our own struggles with divine absence. So this works for our personal stories too. When we tell our stories about triumphs in our personal lives or tragedies, when we listen to others and hear their stories, we are engaging in a process of connecting with God. You see, if each one of us contains a spark of the divine, then sharing of that experience and being present with one another as we do so helps to release that light of goodness into the world. One story I'd like to share about experiencing the divine presence took place during my summers at camp. One of Camp Harlem's iconic prayer spaces is our chapel in the woods, where we pray each Shabbat morning. Before the Torah service, we would sing the opening liturgy to Debbie Friedman's Su She'arim Roshechem. Beautiful melody that would grow and build to a climax where some 700 people would be singing Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu. And in that moment, week after week, summer after summer, I felt God's presence. And I felt it in two ways. First was the tingle down my spine, that presence within me, some sort of electricity pulsing through. And simultaneously, there was something beyond me, an awareness of a force, a process so much greater than myself and greater even than the sum of the souls praying in the woods in Pennsylvania. Sharing that with you helps me share one of the most basic elements of my belief, that God is both within us and beyond us, within our world and beyond it. Both aspects are central to my understanding, but I don't think I could have ever come to appreciate them without turning that memory into a story. Poetry also helps open the gates of discourse on the divine. When we write and read poems, our attention is drawn to the aesthetic, the beauty, and the art of language. And when it comes to imagining God in new ways, metaphor represents one of poetry's greatest gifts. Comparisons between things challenge us to think about the ways that the comparison works well, and the ways that it doesn't really work so well. One particular prayer this season that reminds me of this metaphor is Ki Anu Amecha. It begins with the phrase, "For we are your people, and you are our God." Sounds straightforward enough. But then it continues with what almost reads like a laundry list of metaphors. We are your children, you are our parent. We are your servants, you are our master. We are the flock, you are the shepherd. We are the vineyard, you are the vintner. And so on. But when I return year after year, I sort of think, and I imagine whoever would have first thought of this idea, I imagine them sitting by candlelight over a desk one night and just writing a list, basically, of all those things that they thought, maybe God is sort of like this. One metaphor that really works for me is that of God as breath, or air. We breathe in air, this invisible substance all around us, and that air quite literally transforms us. It provides our cells with oxygen, and it sustains our bodies. But in never-ending cycle, as long as we live, we exhale. We send that breath right back out into the universe. And in that way, we are continuously linking ourselves with all creation. As the very air we breathe flows both within and beyond us at all time. As breath of our universe, then, God too is at once within us all and far greater than us. The creative power of language may be one of the most fundamental ways that we find ourselves created in the divine image. And our words and stories and poems can help us prod our theological imaginations to catch up to our rational faculties. This year, I hope to use poetry and storytelling as a community to explore what God has been throughout our lives and to dive into the things we don't yet know about the divine. Because poetry helps us use words to create beauty. And telling our stories, both the sacred stories and the more mundane, helps us do the same. When we use these tools, we can activate our imagination to think about God in new ways. And this, I pray, and I believe, will propel us to think differently about ourselves and the world around us, and about the work that we must all engage in the coming year to leave this world better off than we found it. Yom Kippur calls our attention to Avinu Malkeinu, a name for God that brings together the image of parent and ruler. And as we enter the new year, I challenge you to imagine and experiment with new names for God. Find a story to tell about a moment when you felt God's presence, or a moment when you didn't. Write a poem. Even just find one metaphor, one image that helps describe an aspect of your faith. And once you've done even one of these things, I pray that you'll go out and share it with others and with our community. This year, may our words and our words about God continue to create worlds of meaning. Shana Tova.
Morning. Shana Tova. My name is Peter Mackler. I'm a founding member of Congregation Kol Ami and a member of the Executive Committee. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Congregation Kol Ami, we would like to welcome you once again to our Yom Kippur services and wish you a very happy and healthy New Year. We wish to thank all who have made these high holy days so beautiful. First, of course, to our inspiring clergy, our musicians under the leadership of Dr. Black, our greeters and members of our ritual pillar, and of course our office staff under the direction of Kelsey Copeland. Thank you for the generosity of the sponsors who have underwritten part of our holy days. For our Bima flowers, Carrie Davidson and Andrew Ogilvie, Richard Frank, Lauren Ostro, and Brian Newkirk. For our music and visual tefillah, Carrie Davidson, Andrew Ogilvie, Lauren Ostro, Brian Newkirk, Steve Addison, David Kaminsky, and Patrick Auerbach. And thank you to Lauren Ostro and Brian Newkirk, who have sponsored today's family services. Following our service, our annual 12-step meeting will take place upstairs in room 301. Everyone is welcome. At 2 p.m., Rabbi Eger will begin a special Torah study here in the sanctuary. And following services in room 317 will be a grief group led by grief counselor and MFT Larry Levy. And if you've been dealing with loss of a family member this past year, we encourage you to join us. Afternoon services through Neela will begin again at 3:30 p.m. I hope you will take a look at our bulletin. There is a lot of information inside about upcoming Sukkot celebration in Simchat Torah on September 30th. Shabbat morning services, the Open Yard Project. Consider becoming an adult bar or bat mitzvah, or perhaps travel with Rabbi Eger to Poland and Hungary next June. I'm signing up. Or come to Guatemala on our annual service mission in February, or maybe brunch in Palm Springs in November. Lots of details are inside this bulletin. I hope you will join us for one or more of these programs. Kol Ami Senate Council is joining with Reformed congregations throughout the U.S. in our civic engagement campaign. Please help us to register voters, pledge to vote yourself. In the bulletin, which you are looking at, there is a postcard to help us, to pledge to help us canvass. Please visit the table in the lobby for more information and to sign up. Thank you again for coming to our Yom Kippur morning services. Next Friday night, September 21st, our Shabbat service will start at 8 p.m. And now, indeed, it is my deep pleasure and honor to introduce Temple Board Member Alicia Yaffa Hughes. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Good Yom Tov. I love this time of the year, a time to have our Kol Ami family together again. To see friends I do not see as often as I would like to, and to meet and make new friends. It is always my honor to worship with you. At times like this reminds me of Genesis chapter 26, verse 4, when God said to Abraham, I will make your descendants as numerous as stars in the sky, and will give them all these lands, and through your offspring all nations will be blessed. I also believe that God knew that a lot of Abraham's offsprings would end up right here in Los Angeles. Rabbi Chaiken challenged us with the question that he was asked, why be Jewish? Why be Jewish? Now, this is a question that I get asked quite often. I have to evaluate it at least once a month, maybe more, always when I'm out socially. And each time I have to decide if or how I'm going to answer that question. Sometimes I also have to remind other Jews that God's covenant was a promise for all nations, not just the European nations. This summer we looked on with horror at the gross spectacle of the actions that unfolded in Charlottesville. People carrying tiki torches, marching through the streets with their hateful catchphrases. Jews will not replace us. Blood and soil. White power. White lives matter. Now, some of you may feel threatened or shy about acknowledging your Judaism in public. But I want to remind you, and to remind everyone, that there is strength in our numbers. We should not fear them. Although they may be louder, there are more people like us than not. When we speak with love in our heart, and justice on our minds, and freedom as our goal, we will always win out. I learned from my forefathers and foremothers to not fear these people. So we say to these sad people, I do not fear you. And of course, me being a Southerner, I always have to add, bless your heart. During one of Rabbi Eger's Shabbat sermons, she spoke about Hashem's protection and us wearing our kippah as a reminder that we are protected. Now, on my way home that night after the sermon, I thought about the Negro freedom fighters of 1965, that marched from Selma to Montgomery. Some of them also wore kippahs. They asked one of the rabbis that marched with them, what is the meaning of the yarmulke? An explanation was given to them that gave them hope. They were told that one's head must be covered in the presence of the Lord. The marchers' response was that wherever the freedom movement is, God is to be found there. They came to regard the kippahs as freedom caps. And a demand for the kippahs was so great that the rabbis had to order 1,000 of them for the march. Now, as I was driving home, I had my kippah on. Now, I usually don't take it off until after I get home because I usually lose it. But while driving home, I noticed I was followed. And then I was pulled over by the LAPD. There were 2 SUV cruisers and 4 cops there to welcome me. They jumped out, one at each door, each one of my doors, knocking on my windows with their big flashlight. They were requesting that I roll down all 4 of my windows so that they may better search my car. I refused that request. I only rolled down the window on my side. I was then asked to explain my existence. Who are you? Why are you here? Now, it was only maybe a mile from my own house. I put my hands up, as we're instructed to do, and with my other hand, I reached for my identification. While reaching, the officer tucked his head in the car, shining his flashlight, and he saw my kippah. His countenance changed. He then told the other cops that he was okay, that he got this. And then he and I had a conversation. He was now gentle and humble. He didn't ask me why I wore the kippah, and of course I didn't offer up any information. But I believe that he recognized me as a person of faith. Perhaps he thought I was a woman of the cloth, and maybe he too was a person of faith, and perhaps that night, God's protection got me home safe. Now I drove the rest of the way home thinking about how Rabbi Eger and her sermon got me home safe. Maybe that event could have gone differently since I said no to an illegal search. I woke up the next morning thinking how fortunate I am to have Kol Ami as my family. Soon afterwards, of course, thanks to social media, I witnessed with horror a live video of the closing of a synagogue in the Netherlands. They lacked the strength in numbers to resist. I watched the members pack up prayer books, collected kippahs, candelabras, small furniture, other precious items, and they loaded it into a waiting van. I watched the rabbi walk onto the bima, approach the ark, remove the Torah scrolls. Before he exited the synagogue, he paused. The rabbi shifted the Torah scroll to one side, and with the other hand, he blew his shofar. One last final blast. The members of Beth Shoshana lost their home. They wept. I wept with them. I was overwhelmed with empathy. I wept for the Jewish people. I also wept for Kol Ami. How could this happen? As I was unpacking all of these thoughts, Roberta Bennett called me. And she gave me a pitch for my service. She asked me to serve on the board at Kol Ami. At first I was thinking, oi, I'm not smart enough for that. No, they're much too busy. I don't have enough money to do this. But as she continued to talk, the single thought that came to my mind was, he named me. Here I am. Yes, here I am to serve on the Kol Ami board. As I stand here and see you, I see the promises of Abraham being fulfilled through you. I see your freedom caps. I see the strength in our numbers. Numbers that cannot be driven away. Together we can serve our Kol Ami home so that we will be here for us and for Rabbi Chaiken to allow him the freedom he needs to focus on our future with the Open of the Yard project to reach out to our young adults and engage them in Jewish life and in our community. This is your opportunity. Before you make out the amounts of envelopes, bear in mind your Kol Ami family is here for you, for friends, fellowship, and life events. Whether we are Jews by choice or by birth, today we chose to be here. I encourage you to continue to choose, to study, strengthen your faith and knowledge, attend services, and learn the sacred prayers, fellowship, and socialize. Continue to choose your Judaism. Now, if you have been procrastinating about joining Kol Ami, I give you today the permission to no longer procrastinate. There are membership forms in the lobby, or reach out to the office or to a board member, or maybe to me, since I'm a board member. But reach out to us and become a member of Kol Ami. Now, while our ushers are collecting our envelopes, my ask is that you please step up and be here for your Kol Ami, so that we would never hear that final, last blow of our shofar. Thank you.
thank Yafa for sharing a very powerful story. It teaches us about what we need to do to make this world a very different place. So I thank you in advance for your generosity, and I thank you in advance for being involved to heal the world, which is what we do together here. We comfort one another through our losses. We celebrate with one another our joys. And we take seriously this call to justice. The world needs us, not to sit on the sideline. So I hope that you will help engage with us, register more folks to vote, canvass with us on September 30th, phone bank with us to get people to make a commitment to vote. We've had enough of Charlottesville. At this time, we're going to continue our service with the Torah service, followed immediately by the Yizkor service. At this time, I'd like to invite to the Bima Michael and Sally Beck to the Bima, and also to carry Torah, Joe Zipkin, Greg Factor, Johanna Shore, Larry Levi, and Lisa Freed. You'll join us on the Bima. And then in the front rows, to close to Torah, Francine Epstein, Karen Seitman, Mark Whitman, Adam Schulman, Mason Summers, David Kaminsky, Patrick Auerbach, Steve Weiss, Marty Frank, Richard Bernard, Debbie Futrowski, Zoe Futrowski-Price, Neil Zizlowski, Rebecca Schurz, Dawn Klein, Glenn Melnick, Barry Edelman, and the Sweetman-Weisberg family, Laura, Jane, and Cindy. If you all join us here in the front rows. Michael and Sally, if you join us on the Bima to open the ark. If you'll turn in your Machzor to page 255. Michael and Sally, come over the ark. Rise as the ark is opened.
Please be seated. Our Torah reading this morning comes from Parshat Nitzavim, Deuteronomy chapters 29 and 30. And our first Baalat Kriya, our first Torah reader is Francine Epstein. And Francine, you can mention this now. And our first Oleh, our first Aliyah, goes to Peter Knapler. Ya'amod Yaakov Berel ben Shmuel v'Leah Rishon.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu b'kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kolchem uvnei Adonai Elohechem Rashem Shitechem Ziknechem Ashoshem Kol Ish Yisrael Tachem Nashem Magercha Asher Beker Mahanecha Mehod Tevaksecha Ad Shoef Imecha Ularcha Ivri Adonai Elohecha V'alato Asher Adonai Elohecha Koret Imcha Hayom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu et torato emet b'chei olam v'natan b'tachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. In the presence of our Torah, it is now time that we turn our thoughts to those in our community and in our lives who are in need of healing. Our Kol Ami family is thinking this morning of Michael Andrejczyk, Gary Ashland, Henry Assad, Vivian Bernard, Lynn Gold Deacon, Elaine Black, Lynn Chaiken, Claire Cohen, Dale Cooley, Taylor Dawkins, Wayne Fuchs, Zeus Goldberg, Lori Glickman, Daniel Gruber, Katie Hooper, Lisa Urban, Allison Tanak, Lori Zaslavsky-Koch, Maury Kirkham, Jeffrey Lehman, Adelaide Leleveld, Gail Leventhal, Jack Levin, Jim Leah, Ann May Van Loen, Richard Mendoza, Nancy Palmer, Lori Doniero Palmieri, Cecile Sommerfeld Platt, Richard Beasley, Cantor Jody Schechtman, Sandra Smith, Laura Weisberg Sweetman, Amir Taller, Patty Vincent-Guerra, Bill Walter, Ruth Williams, Nancy Workman, Natalie Young, Howard Zaslavsky, and any who'd like to add for healing at this time. Source of blessing, may all these loved ones know a complete healing. Refuah shlema, refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, a healing of the body and a healing of the spirit. And may we all be messengers of healing in our love we show for them this day and every day going forward. Together let us say, Amen. For our second Aliyah, Francine will continue as our Baalat Kriya, and it is my pleasure to call Mark Littman and Adam Schulman for the Aliyah. Yamdu Moshe Zalman ben Shire, V'chaim ben Eliezer ve'Yehudit Shenit.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach
le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. למען הקים אותך היום לא לעולם, והוא יהיה לך אלוהים כאשר דיבר לך וכאשר נשבע לאבותיך לאברהם ליצחק וליעקב. ולא איתכם לברכם אנוכי כורת את הברית הזאת ותלה הזאת, כי את אשר ישנו פה עמנו מהיום לפני אדוני אלוהינו, ואת אשר איננו פה עמנו היום.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natav b'tokeinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
For our third Aliyah, our Baalat Kriya is Karen Seichman. I invite her now. And our Aliyah is for Steve Weiss and Marty Frank. Yamdu Yechezkel ben Natan Moshe ben Maya v'Shemaya Shlishi.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMavarach. Baruch Adonai Olam V'Olam. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'Chayei Olam Natav B'Tokeinu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natav b'tokeinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
You'll stay here as our witnesses. Our Karen will continue as our Baalat Kriya, and it is my pleasure to call David Kaminsky and Patrick Auerbach. Yamdu David ben Adam Rachel Upinchas ben Yaakov Malka Revi.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMorach. Baruch Adonai HaMorach le'olam ha'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMorach le'olam ha'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
היום את החיים ואת הטוב, ואת הרע ואת הרע, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לעבוד את אדוני אלוהיך ללכת בדרכיו ולשמור וחיית ורבית וברכך אדוני אלוהיך בארץ אשר אתה בשמה ורשת ואם יפנה לבבך ולא תשמע ונירחת והשתחווית לאלוהים אחרים ועבדת
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you, and good evening, Patrick. You'll stay as our witnesses. Thank you so much.
We're going to do something a little different for the fifth Aliyah. We're going to ask Mason to come forward to be our Baal Koreh for us. But this year, we're going to ask for the fifth and final Aliyah for this morning. Anyone who's had something to celebrate this year, maybe a special birthday, an anniversary, a graduation, sending kids off to school, a new job, recovering from a health situation, anybody who's had anything good to celebrate, if you stand up where you are, come forward if you'd like to be close to Torah. Some of you I know had 10th wedding anniversaries because I was there. That's pretty special. We're going to do this special group Aliyah in the hopes that the goodness that you shared in this year will not only continue in the year ahead, but rub off on all of us who need some good stuff to happen in this coming year.
And we'll say in Hebrew, Ya'amdu Kol HaMisamchim, all those who are rejoicing for something in the last year. Hamishit.
Page 258 are the brachot. We join together. Baruch Hu
et Adonai HaMorah, Baruch Adonai HaMorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'haranu Kol Ami, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Igarati lechem hayom ki avod tovedu lo ta'arihu yamim al chadma asher ata over et hayarden lavo shama l'rishta Ha'iroti bachem hayom et hashamayim v'et ha'aretz ha'hayim v'hamavet netati lefanecha habracha v'hagalala uv'harta b'hayim Mantiye ata v'zrecha Nachava et Adonai Elohecha Lishmoa b'kolo udov kevo Ki hu chayecha ve'orech yamecha Leshevet al ha'adema Asher nishba Adonai lavatecha la'Abraham leYitzhak u'Yaakov l'teit lehem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam ata b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai notei haTorah. Amen.
Yasher Koach.
Yasher Koach.
May your blessings increase and may your blessings rub off on the rest of us.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You all can be seated.
We head back to your seats, but we'll remain standing as we rise all together to lift and dress the Torah. Richard Bernard will be our Matvia, and Debbie Kutrowski, our Zolele. V'zol Torah she'esam Moshe B'nei Bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe.
Of the Haftarah. The blessings begin on 275. We're so excited that Zoe Kutrowski-Price is going to read the Haftarah for us and do the blessings. She's been working hard on so much, so thank you, Zoe.
Cry from the depths, says God. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar. Tell my people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sin. Yes, they seek me daily, as though eager to learn my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not abandoned God's laws. They ask me the right way, eager for God's nearness. They say, why do we fast, and you do not see it? We afflict ourselves, and you do not know it. Because even on your fast day, you think only of desire, while oppressing of all who work for you. Because your fasting is filled with strife, and with calloused fist you strive. Know your fasting this day will not lift up your voice before heaven. Is this the fast I desire? A day to afflict body and soul. Bowing your head like a reed, covering yourself with sackcloth and ashes. Do you call this a fast, a day worthy of the favor of Adonai? Is this not the fast I desire? To break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved. It is not to share your bread with the hungry and to take the homeless poor into your home, and never to neglect your own flesh and blood. Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and your wounds shall quickly heal, your righteous one leading clear before you, the presence of Adonai guarding you from behind. Then, when you call, Adonai will answer, and when you cry, will respond, I am here. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the malicious word, if you offer your compassion to the hungry and satisfy the suffering, then shall your light shine through the darkness, and your night become bright as noon. Adonai will guide you always, slake your thirst in parched places, give strength to your bones. You shall be like a well-watered garden, an unfailing spring. From you they will rebuild ancient ruins, lay foundations for ages to come. And you shall be called the one who mends the breach and brings back the streets for dwelling. And if you cease to trample Shabbat, stop pursuing your affairs on my holy day. If you call Shabbat a delight, the holy day of Adonai honored. If you honor God, not doing business or speaking of everyday matters, then shall you take pure delight in Adonai. I will lift up your journey on earth to the highest of places, and nourish you from the heritage of Father Jacob. For thus spoke Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol ha'olamim, tzadik beho ha'aror, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'medaber u'mkayem, shekol devarav emet b'tzedek. Al ha'torah, ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al ha'nevi'im, ve'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh. Shanata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Mimchila v'lislicha u'kipara, lechavod u'tifara. Al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim la, u'mevarchim ota, yitbarach shimcha, befi kol ha'tamid le'olam va'ed. Udvarcha met v'kayam la'ad. Baruch atah Adonai, melech mohel v'solech la'avonoteinu, v'la'avonot amot be'Yisrael, u'mavir ashmoteinu b'chol shana v'shana. Melech al kol ha'aretz, mekadesh Yisrael, b'yom ha'kippurim.
Well, we're going to rise as we put the Torah away. We'd like to invite Glenn Melnick, Barry Edelman, and the Sweetman Weisberg family to join us on the bima. And Richard, you too.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, ki nizkar shmo levaru, odo haaretz, shamayim, vayaret be'amo, tehilo levo, chasida,
First is a prayer for our congregation, Neil Zaslowski, and then Rebecca and Dawn, if you'll also join us up here. Prayer for our country and a prayer for Israel. If you'll join us. Dawn, if you'll join us up here. Page 284. Oh no, we're not. We're doing a special prayer. You're doing it. You have it. Did you have it? No, I sent it. Good pause.
Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us: love of Torah, devotion and prayer, and support for the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadka v'yirah na'avod.
Back up.
O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honour those who have died in defence of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
Page 288, Prayer for a State of Israel. A reminder that it was 45 years ago today that the Yom Kippur War started. I'm sure many of you remember where you were in that 1973 moment when you learned that Israel was attacked yet again. So Israel needs our prayers. It's not a perfect country, just like our own is not a perfect country, but it is the Jewish people's homeland. And so we pray for peace for all of its peoples. Thank you, Don. This right here.
Avinu, you who are high above all nations, states, and peoples, Rock of Israel, the one who has saved us and preserved us in life, bless the state of Israel, first flowering of our redemption. Be her loving shield, a shelter of lasting peace. Guide her leaders and advisors by your light of truth. Instruct them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who build and protect our holy land. Deliver them from danger. Crown their efforts with success. Grant peace to the land, lasting joy to all of her people. And together we say, Amen.
We continue now, and I invite Harvey Silverman and Todd Reinhardt forward to open our ark as we have another opportunity to recite our confessions before God. We're turning to page 292.
296.
296, sorry, thank you. We rise as the ark is opened.
God, our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence. And when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong. On page 300.
Please be seated.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים. Together, the ways we have wronged you under duress and by choice, and harm we have caused in your world consciously and unconsciously. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בבלי דעת, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בריצת רגליים הרע. The ways we have wronged you through our thoughtlessness, and harm we have caused in your world through impulsive acts of malice. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחוזק יד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזלזול הורים ומורים. The ways we have wronged you by abusing our power, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect parents and teachers. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בקשיות עורף. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through inflexibility and stubbornness. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בכחש ובכזב, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בקלות ראש. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world by making light of serious matters. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשיח שפתותינו, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בצרות עין. The ways we have wronged you in our routine conversations, and harm we have caused in your world through envy. ואל כולם אלוה הסליחות סלח לנו, וחל לנו, כפר לנו. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בשנאת חינם.
The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, the harm we have caused in your world by hating without cause.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בפריקת עול, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך במאכל ובמשתה.
The ways we have wronged you by losing self-control, the harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגילוי עריות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך באימוץ הלב.
The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, the harm we have caused in your world by hardening our hearts.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בנשך ובמרבית, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך במשא ובמתן.
The ways we have wronged you through greed and exploitation, the harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty and business.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהרהור הלב, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ברכילות.
The ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and the harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחפת שוחד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחילול השם.
The ways we have wronged you by offering or accepting bribes, the harm we have caused in your world by making your name public.
ועל כולם אלוה הסליחות סלח לנו, וחל לנו, כפר לנו.
For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, and lead us to atonement.
Amen.
page 316. We've prayed and we've confessed, and we ask God to hear our voices. Shema Kolenu. now into the Easter service as the Easter books are being distributed. We know that for many of us, this is one of the hardest parts of our Yom Kippur day. And yet there is something about it that is comforting because we bring to mind our loved ones who are no longer walking this earth with us, but who in many ways are still so very present in our lives, so very vibrant, very much a part of our everyday existence. So we begin on page 1 Ashrei HaGafor. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that softly burns in the heart's secret places. Blessed is the heart that wanes with dignity. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Cantor Linsky will sing now a beautiful piece called Kaddish-El, written as a way, the person who or whom said Kaddish for their loved ones, they became the Kaddish.
Didn't I tell you I love you? Didn't I show you I care? Didn't I tell you you matter? Wasn't it life that we shared? But time kept ticking. Our lives kept slipping. Now that our journey is over, somehow it doesn't seem fair. Now there is no one to talk with, no one to walk with and be with. Still everything seems to remind me, as if you're beside me still here. But time kept ticking, our lives kept slipping. Now that our journey is over, somehow it doesn't seem fair. I can't hold the weight, I can't slow the tide, I can't stop the breezes from blowing, I can't hold the tears burning inside, I can't stop the seasons from coming or going. I hope that I told you I love you. I hope that I showed you I care. I hope that you know that you matter. What a great life we did share. What a great journey we share.
This is the hour of memory, and this is our house of comfort. Wounded by loss, we retreat from life. But our synagogue gathers us in. Into this place we bring stories and prayers and unanswered questions, tears that need to be shed, lives recollected and carried within us, moments of courage and laughter and pain. This day embraces them all. Now the heart opens in sorrow, for we are a time subject, and all that we love we must lose. So let us hold fast to the love that remains and cherish the light of the sun. Today all of us walk the mourner's path. Together may we find strength. Page 87 in your memorial booklet is Psalm 121, Esa Enai.
Yes, I
Page 2 in your memorial booklet. No other psalm, perhaps no other prayer, but the Kaddish itself is as inseparable from our experience of grief and mourning as the 23rd Psalm. One phrase, so simple and direct yet emotionally profound, has made it so. Ki ata imadi, for you are with me. Or perhaps as you learned it in an earlier time, for thou art with me. To arrive at those words after passing through the valley of the shadow of death is to know that God contains and supports us as a mighty ocean contains and supports the infinitesimal drops of every single wave. To arrive at those words is to feel at home in the cosmos, held and comforted, cared for, and, we pray, serene. The 23rd Psalm does not make promises it cannot keep. At the end of all evil, the eradication of suffering and pain, sunshine instead of shadows. Rather, it makes but one single promise. Only this: you are not alone. Psalm 23. We turn to page 88 in our memorial booklet. May God remember the souls of our loved ones and all of our relatives and friends who have gone to their eternal rest. In remembrance of them, Let us perform acts of tzedakah and kindness. May their souls be treasured in the cluster of immortals along with Abraham and Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, and Rachel and Leah, and all the righteous men and women who have merited a share in the world to come. And let us all say, Amen. As we prepare ourselves to hear the El Malei Rachamim prayer, let us take a moment to think of our family and friends, perhaps flip through the book, think of so many who are no longer with us physically, but we think of how much we love them. We think about how much we miss them. And we turn to page 89 as we stand in their memory and honor for the El Malei Rachamim prayer. God, full of compassion. When there's an empty seat at the table. We miss them when our community gathers and there's an empty place beside us. We miss them today and every day. With every year that passes, as our life goes on without them. Their faces, their voices, the feel of our arms around them, these are with us forever. For so it is written, love is strong as death. The love that we gave, the love we received, these endure amid the pain of loss. On this Yom Kippur day, we are observing the yortzites of Esther Barzel and of Grant Goshen, Isaac Gibson, father of Jacob Gibson, Dora Goshen, grandmother of Grant Goshen, Kenneth Golden, father of Howard Golden, Ruth Morris, grandmother of Richard Wortman, Ruth Romanoff, mother of Neil Romanoff, Richard Tansman, friend of Russell Lyon, Anthony Vaughn, brother of Robin Vaughn, Velma Adams, friend of Evan Cohn, Gladys Becker, mother of Carl Becker, Celia Seligman Bloom, grandmother of Jennifer Dinstrand, Murray Haber, father of Margie Haber, Jim Soltz, stepfather of Alan Weisbart. And we've been reciting Kaddish this past year for Salvador Minuchin, Bruce Weems, Terry Barnett, Marilyn Belenky, Max Snow, Joanne Riegler, Molly Melnick, Mildred Banks Royer, Julius Lester, Rabbi Isaiah Zellman, Dolores Mealy, Irvin Weinstein, Ruth Lowen, James Norton Adler, Pedro Balderas, Terry Kornbluth, Brian Garfield, Greta Rosenblum, Connie Cohen, Ruth Bergen Rothenberg, Tara Eisner, Lillian Levin, Hillary Blumfeld, Jeffrey Rendazzo, Jonathan Keynes, Marvin Schultz, Cynthia Jacobson, Vasily Turkin, Arthur Stein, Billy Lobo, Beatrice Ellison, Bernie Backrack, Rosalie Rosenfeld, Barbara Albert, Rita Norton, Larry Wagman, Bob Torrey, Meyer Galler, Rita Weiss, Ron Gold, Ron Victor. We note with sadness the death this week of Winifred Beard, mother of Leslie Beard, mother-in-law of Iris Levine, and Gertrude Diamond, dear friend of Addie and Phil Levendale. There are others that we would like to say aloud their names at this time. Please, please say their names. And we remember all those who have no one left to say Kaddish for them but us. We rise, the mourner's Kaddish is on page 90 of your memorial booklet, as we recite these ancient and hallowed words together. Yikadal v'yitkadash shemei rabah, v'yomah divrach yutei, v'yamlit b'achutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayed kol beit Yisrael, v'galah v'yizman karim v'yuru amen. Yehei shmei rabah v'barach le'olam u'amei amayim. Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitamar, Yitramah, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shemei Kedusha, B'richu, V'leila, V'leila, Minchol, Mirchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechamata, Damiran, V'alma, V'yuru, Amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba, Min Shemaya, V'chayim, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'yuru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'broma, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael, Kol Yoshvei Tevel, v'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace and comfort to all who mourn, and all who have been bereaved in this year and in years past. And let us all say, amen. As we close our service together on this Yom Kippur morning, we've said many words, we've heard such beautiful music, we've been inspired to lift up our souls for the year ahead. And so as we offer this ancient blessing to each of you, we hope that you will go from here with the knowledge that our work together is not over, that the work of turning around our lives and our world depends upon each and every one of us to do our part, to bring down justice from heaven to those who need it, to bring down peace from heaven between each and every person on this planet, to bring down love that we can share with our family and our friends and with one another. The closing blessings on page 244. Shalom, peace in your heart, in your mind, in your home, and in our world. To one another, Gamar Chatima Tova, may you be inscribed for a good year in the Book of Life. We will return for a service here at 3:30. The 12-step meeting is in room 301, and the grief group is meeting in 317. And at 2 o'clock, I'll be in here teaching our text for this afternoon, our Jonah. I hope you'll join me. We'll see you at 3:30 for our final closing service of the day. Shana Tova.